The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse as Chukwuemeka Okonkwo stood at the edge of his balcony, phone trembling in his hand. Below him, Lagos stretched out like a sea of lights, a city he had conquered, a kingdom he had built with his bare hands, but none of it mattered now. "Sir, the wedding starts in 2 hours," his assistant's voice crackled through the speaker. "The governor is already at the venue. Your father is asking for you." Chukwuemeka closed his eyes. In his other hand, he held a faded photograph, a girl with kind eyes and a gentle smile, standing in front of a village school. The girl from his dreams, the girl he had spent 2 years searching for, the girl he had finally found. "Tell them," his voice broke. "Tell them I'm not coming." The phone slipped from his fingers, clattering on the marble floor. Somewhere across this city, Adaeze was waiting, not in a grand cathedral surrounded by Lagos elite, but in a small room, unaware that he even knew she existed. And he had to make a choice that would destroy one of them forever. But to understand how a billionaire could throw away everything for a ghost, for a dream, for a promise whispered by a stranger, we have to go back to where it all began. Before we continue this story, if you love deep emotional tales that touch your soul, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let's begin. Chukwuemeka Okonkwo woke up gasping. It was 4:47 a.m., and the silk sheets of his king-sized bed were drenched in sweat. His heart pounded as if he'd been running, but he hadn't moved an inch. At 32 years old, Emeka, as his friends called him, had built a tech empire worth billions. He owned half of Victoria Island, had connections that reached the presidency, and was engaged to Kimberly Adeyemi, daughter of Nigeria's richest oil magnate. But none of it felt real. What felt real was her. The girl in his dream had been sitting under a mango tree, teaching children who sat on the bare ground. Her wrapper was simple, faded from many washes, but her smile could have lit up the entire village. When she looked at him in the dream, it was as if she could see straight through his expensive suits and luxury cars, right into the hollow space where his soul used to be. "You've been searching for the wrong things," she had said, her voice like honey and rain. "But don't worry, I'll wait for you." Then she had disappeared. Emeka shook his head, trying to clear the fog. It was just a dream, stress from the upcoming wedding. His therapist had warned him about this, cold feet disguised as romantic fantasies. He forced himself out of bed, went through his morning routine with mechanical precision, and by 7 a.m. he was in his Rolls-Royce heading to his office tower in Ikoyi. By 7:15, he had already forgotten about the dream, or so he thought.
The woman appeared in his office at exactly 2:47 p.m. Emeka's secretary hadn't announced her. Security hadn't called. One moment he was alone, reviewing acquisition documents, and the next, she was sitting across from his desk as if she had always been there. She was old, impossibly old, with eyes that seemed to contain centuries. She wore traditional wrapper and blouse, and around her neck hung beads that clicked softly when she moved. "Who are you?" Emeka demanded, reaching for his phone. "How did you get in here?" "My name is Mama Nkiruka," she said calmly, ignoring his panic, "and I came because you dreamed of her last night." Emeka's hand froze. "What did you say?" "The girl under the mango tree, the teacher with the smile that breaks your heart every time you remember it, even though you're trying very hard to forget." The phone slipped from Emeka's fingers. That's impossible. No one knows about that dream." Mama and Kiroka smiled, and it was both kind and terribly sad. Chukwuemeka, son of Okonkwo, grandson of warriors and traders, builders of towers that touch the sky, but not hearts that need touching, I know many things. I know that you are about to marry a woman you do not love. I know that your father arranged this marriage to merge two empires. I know that you have convinced yourself that love is a luxury you cannot afford." "Get out," Emeka whispered, but even he could hear the weakness in his voice. "The girl in your dream is real," Mama Nkiruka continued, leaning forward. "Her name is Adaeze Nwankwo. She teaches in a village school in Enugu State. She is 26 years old, has never left her village, and she dreams of you too." Emeka's feet felt the room spin. "This is madness." "Is it?" The old woman's eyes pierced through him. "You've been empty your whole life, Emeka. You filled that emptiness with money, power, respect, everything except what your soul truly needs. Adaeze is your destiny. She is the wife that was chosen for you before you were born. But what?" Mama Nkiruka stood, her beads clicking like a countdown. "You have a choice to make. You can marry Kimberly in 3 weeks as planned. Your father will be proud. Your empire will double. You will have everything the world says you should want. Or you can search for Adaeze, find her, know her, and face a sacrifice that will cost you everything you think defines you." "This is insane," Emeka said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Your head says insane. What does your heart say?" Mama Nkiruka walked to the door, then turned back. "You have 2 years to find her and make your choice. After that, destiny closes its door. Choose wisely, Chukwuemeka. Some men die rich, others die whole." She left without opening the door. Emeka sat in his office until the sun set, staring at nothing, feeling everything. The first year was torture. Emeka told no one about Mama Nkiruka. How could he? A mysterious seer appearing in his locked office, telling him about a village girl who was his destiny? His business partners would think he'd lost his mind. Kimberly would call off the engagement. His father would disown him. So he kept quiet and searched in secret. He hired private investigators who combed through Enugu State. He personally visited dozens of villages disguised in simple clothing, asking about teachers named Adaeze. He funded educational programs just to get access to teacher registries. He became obsessed. Meanwhile, he continued his double life. By day, he was the perfect fiancé to Kimberly, attending charity galas, smiling for society pages, discussing honeymoon destinations. By night, he pored over reports and photographs, searching for a face he'd seen only in dreams. Kimberly noticed the distance, but attributed it to wedding stress. His father noticed the distraction, but blamed it on business expansion. No one suspected the truth. Then, 1 year and 7 months after Mama Nkiruka's visit, he found her. The photograph came from a rural development NGO's annual report. There she was, standing in front of a small school building, surrounded by children, wearing that same gentle smile that had haunted him for nearly 2 years. The caption read, "Miss Adaeze Nwankwo, volunteer teacher, Umeze Village Primary School." Emeka's hands shook so violently he could barely hold the page. She was real, she existed, and she was exactly as he dreamed. He chartered a helicopter the next morning.
Umweze village was not on any luxury map. The roads were red dirt, the houses were modest compounds, and the school was a concrete building with a rusted zinc roof. It was the kind of place Emeka's world would never touch, which made it the only place that could save him. He arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, having sent his helicopter away and walked the last mile. His designer shoes were covered in dust. His tailored shirt clung to his back with sweat. But he didn't care. And then he saw her. Adaeze was outside the school, under a mango tree, exactly as in his dream. She was teaching a group of children who couldn't afford school fees, using a stick to draw letters in the dust. When she laughed at something a child said, Emeka felt his heart stop. She looked up and saw him. For a moment that stretched into eternity, they just stared at each other. Recognition flickered in her eyes, impossible recognition, as if she too had been waiting. "I know you," she whispered when he finally approached. "I've seen you in my dreams." Emeka couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Who are you?" Adaeze asked, but her voice was gentle, not afraid. "My name is Emeka," he managed, "and I've been searching for you for almost 2 years." What followed were 3 months of secret meetings. Emeka would fly to Enugu every week, spending stolen days in Umweze village. He learned that Adaeze had lost her parents young, that she taught because she believed education could break poverty's chains, that she dreamed of building a proper school for her village children. She learned that he was wealthy, though she didn't know how wealthy, that he felt empty despite his success, that he'd been dreaming of her too. They fell in love without trying. It was as inevitable as sunrise. But Emeka never told her about Kimberly, never told her that in 3 months he was supposed to marry someone else, never told her that every moment with her was borrowed time. The wedding invitation arrived in Umweze village by accident. Emeka had been careful, so careful to keep his 2 worlds separate, but fate or destiny or karma had other plans. A courier, confused by similar addresses, delivered a wedding invitation to the village chief's compound where Adaeze was visiting. She opened it out of curiosity. "Mr. Chukwuemeka Okonkwo and Miss Kimberly Adeyemi cordially invite you." The paper slipped from her fingers. When Emeka arrived the next day, she was waiting under their mango tree. Tears dried on her cheeks, eyes filled with a pain that broke him. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Her voice was steady, but he could hear the devastation beneath. "Adaeze, I can explain." "Explain what? That you're engaged? That you're getting married in 2 weeks? That everything we shared was, what? A game? A distraction before you settled into your real life?" "No," Emeka grabbed her hands. "You are my real life. This, here, with you. This is the only real thing I've ever had." "Then why?" She pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. "Why didn't you tell me?" And Emeka told her everything, about Maman Kiaruka, about the prophecy, about the 2-year search, about the choice he'd been avoiding. "My father will disown me if I call off this wedding. The Adeyemi family will destroy my business. I'll lose everything I've built. My company employs thousands of people, Adaeze. Families depend on me. And if I marry Kimberly, I can use that wealth to help villages like yours. I can fund schools, hospitals, infrastructure." "But you won't be happy," Adaeze said softly. "No," he admitted, "I won't be." They sat in silence as the sun set over the village. Finally, Adaeze spoke. "I love you, Emeka. I love you in a way I didn't know was possible. But I won't be the reason you lose everything. I won't be the woman who destroyed a billionaire's empire because of a dream. Adaeze. Go," she said, standing up. "Marry her. Help people with your wealth. Do good in the world. And maybe that was what the dream was really about. Maybe I was just meant to show you what you were missing so you could become a better man for her." "I don't want to be better for her," Emeka said desperately. "I want to be whole for you." But Adaeze was already walking away, and this time she didn't look back.
Which brings us back to the beginning. The wedding day arrived like an execution. The cathedral was filled with Nigeria's elite, politicians, business moguls, celebrities. The flowers alone cost more than most people earned in a year. Kimberly looked stunning in her designer gown. and Emeka stood in his penthouse, unable to move. He had tried to forget Adayeze, tried to convince himself that duty and responsibility mattered more than love, tried to believe that Mama Nkiruka's prophecy was just a delusion. But standing there, about to walk into a marriage that would seal his fate, he finally understood what the seer had really told him. Some men die rich, others die whole. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Cancel everything," he told his assistant. "Sir, you can't be serious." "Cancel everything." He was already moving, grabbing keys, heading for the door. "And call a press conference for tomorrow. I have an announcement to make." The drive to Enugu should have taken 6 hours. Emeka made it in 4. He arrived at Umueze village just as the sun was rising, covered in dust, exhausted, terrified, and more certain than he'd ever been about anything. Adayeze was under the mango tree, preparing for her morning class. When she saw him, her eyes widened. "I called off the wedding," Emeka said, without preamble. "I'm stepping down as CEO. I'm liquidating my personal assets and putting them in a trust for education development. And I'm here to ask if you'll marry me. Not a billionaire, not a king of industry, but just a man who loves you more than he loves his own life." Adayeze stared at him. "Emeka, you can't throw away your entire life for—" "I'm not throwing it away. I'm finally living it. I've been dead for 32 years, Adayeze. You brought me to life, and I don't care if we live in a village or a palace. I don't care if I have billions or nothing. I just need to be with you." Tears streamed down her face. "Your father will never forgive you." "I know. The business world will call you crazy." "Let them. We'll struggle. We'll have to build a life from scratch. Then let's build something real." Adayeze looked at him for a long moment, this man who had given up everything, who stood before her, not in designer suits, but in rumpled clothes and desperate love. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." They kissed under the mango tree while the village children cheered, unaware that they were witnessing a billionaire's redemption. 3 years later, Emeka and Adayeze stood in front of a beautiful new school building in Umueze village, the first of 30 they had built across Nigeria using the education trust Emeka had established. Their daughter, Nkiruka, played nearby with village children, her laughter bright as bells. Emeka's father had indeed disowned him. The business world had called him insane, but Emeka had never been happier. Then, one afternoon, Mama Nkiruka appeared again, materializing under their mango tree as mysteriously as before. "You chose well," she said, smiling at them both. "Thank you," Emeka said, "for showing me what truly mattered." But Mama Nkiruka's smile turned sad. "Oh, Chukwuemeka, you still don't understand, do you?" "Understand what?" The old woman turned to Adayeze. "Tell him, child." Adayeze's eyes filled with tears. She took Emeka's hands, her voice breaking. "Emeka, there's something I never told you. When I was 20, I got very sick. The doctors said I wouldn't live past 30. I accepted it, but then I started having dreams about you, and Mama Nkiruka came to me too." Emeka's world tilted. "What?" "She told me that if I stayed in my village, if I lived with purpose and love, I would meet a man who needed saving more than I needed saving. She said that our love would heal us both. She said—" Adayeze's voice broke completely. "She said I had to choose between a long life or a true life." Mama Nkiruka spoke gently. "The dreams weren't prophecy, Emeka. They were a gift, a chance for 2 souls who were dying, one from emptiness, one from illness, to save each other."
Adeyeze chose to live fully rather than live long. She chose you, knowing it would cost her years. No, Emeka whispered, pulling Adeyeze close. No, there has to be another way. There is, Mama Nkiruka said. She has time still, not decades perhaps, but time to build schools, time to raise your daughter, time to love and be loved. She chose quality over quantity. She chose you. Emeka looked at his wife, this woman who had sacrificed her future to give him one. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have left, said Adeyeze simply. You would have walked away to save me, and we both would have died anyway, me from illness, you from emptiness. This way, we both get to live, really live. As the sun set over their village, Emeka held his wife and daughter close, understanding finally what Mama Nkiruka had tried to tell him all along. Some men die rich, surrounded by things that don't matter. Others die whole, having loved and been loved in return. And sometimes, if you're blessed enough, you get to choose which kind of man you want to be. The mango tree rustled in the wind, and somewhere in the distance, children laughed in a schoolyard, learning from a teacher who had chosen love over longevity, and a billionaire who had chosen life over legacy.